Talking with the experts.
After being carjacked in South Africa, Lee Roebeck explains how he faced his fears to achieve his goals in episode 323.
Yeah. So, hijacking or carjackings are daily occurrence. So on the 13th of January 2019, I was carjacked. I was hijacked close to where I stay in front of a shopping center. And it was a Sunday afternoon at about 2:15 in the afternoon. I pulled into this shopping center. There's a furniture store there, and all the stores were closed because it was a Sunday afternoon. But I hopped out of the car to look at these dining tables. I was window shopping. We just moved into a new place. So I was looking for a dining table. And the next minute, Rose, this gray Volkswagen Golf pulls into the parking lot with blue lights on the dashboard. So I obviously thought it was an unmarked police vehicle. But instantly, my gut, my intuition told me that something's not right here. So anyway,
Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can catch it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. And today my guest is Lee Roebeck. And Lee is going to be discussing with us about how we can face our fears and achieve any goal that we want to. And there are three types of goals, and which one is the only one worth pursuing? And Lee is an abundance coach and one of South Africa's best trained speakers. He travelled to Boston in the US to receive his training at the Harvard of Professional Speaking Schools with Bill Gove's speech workshop. Lee helps entrepreneurs clear money blocks and attract clients easily. He works with entrepreneurs from all over the world, and these business people are experiencing quantum leaps in their results because of the ideas that he teaches. Welcome, Lee, and thank you so much for being here today.
Rose, it's awesome to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, so tell me, how did you get into doing what you're doing?
So there's a bit of a story behind that. A couple of years ago, could have been 2012, 2013, I set, when I really got into personal development, I had a couple of affirmations, as all these teachers teach us. And, one of the affirmations was, I spoke to the universe and I said, Dad, take control of my mind and my heart and, show me where I'm meant to be. And I affirmed that for a long time. And eventually one day I woke up to a message from a friend who I had not seen for 8 years. And he messaged me on social media, Rose, and he said, I just had a dream. I had a dream about you last night. Does this make any sense? You were a speaker at a conference. And at that time I was in an IT corporate career. And that dream or that message from a friend was literally the reason that I've come down this path in terms of speaking and coaching. Yeah.
So I guess what are the three types of goals? And I know that you've got a story that that you would like to share. If you would like to share that with us and tell us, what these three types of goals are.
Okay, so those are three different types of goals. When I work with someone, I refer to them as A, B, and C goals. It's something I've picked up from my mentor, the great and late Bob Proctor. Are you familiar with Bob?
Yes, I am.
So an A-type goal is something you already know how to do. And an example Bob often used to use, he was conducting a seminar one day, and a man came up to him at the break and said, can I please speak to you about my goal? And Bob said, sure, man, go ahead. The guy then said, I'd like to get a new Pontiac. So Bob said, Pontiac's a nice car. I've had a Pontiac. So he says to the man, what are you driving right now? And the man says, a Pontiac. So Bob looks at him and he says, really? He says, how long have you had the Pontiac? The guy says 4 years. He says to him, how old is the Pontiac? The guy says 4 years old. And he said to him, that's not really a good goal to set, because for 4 years you've known how to achieve it. Now that doesn't mean don't get yourself a new Pontiac, but that would not constitute a goal, because a goal, when it's set in the right way, we're going after something we've never done before. Now, generally, when people move away from A-type goals, they move to what we call a B-type goal. Now, B-type goal is something, A-type is what you can do. A B-type is what you think you can do. Now, a lot of logical, analytical, process-driven people set B-type goals. It's like the thinking goes like this: if I get that funding, if I get the right subcontractors in place, if I land those 3 contracts, if all of these things fall into place, I think I can achieve this goal. Now, the thing that goes with setting a B-type goal is B-type goals are based in logic, which is the direct opposite of inspiration, emotion, motivation. And often people will set B-type goals, they get started, they get going, they're not inspired, so they quit. And in our coaching programs, what we really do is inspire people to set what we call a C-type goal. Now, C-type goal is what you really want. And a C-type goal should be based in fantasy, by engaging your imagination. Now, a lot of people will say that's a bunch of hogwash, or that's a load of bollocks. But the thing is, all the movers and shakers have always set big fantasy C-type goals, something they had no idea how they were going to accomplish. When you and I were little kids, or when, if you're listening to this, when you were a little child, you had a naturally highly active imagination. You'd go to school, you'd stare out the window, and your teacher would say, Rose, you're daydreaming again, come back into the classroom. And, we had these great imaginations. You'd come home, you'd tell your mom and your dad, I'm going to do this, I'm going to build this airplane, or I'm going to, change the world. And they'd say, how are you going to do that? You got to be realistic. Steve Jobs was one of the greatest inventors of our times, right? He said, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. We can only connect the dots looking backward, but we have to trust that the dots will connect. These are but extreme examples that I'm going to use, but the same mental faculties these individuals had, we had. Sir Edmund Hillary didn't know how he was going to summit Mount Everest until after he got there. He failed in 51, he failed in 52. We know in 53 he summited that mountain and was knighted by the Queen. The Wright brothers didn't know how they were going to get us into the air until afterwards. They had a fantasy, they had this big C-type goal. Edison didn't know how he was going to give us the incandescent light bulb until afterwards, So those are the 3 different types of goals. And people really need to stretch and set goals in terms of what they really want, not what they think they can do, not what you're capable of achieving. What do you really want? And the process there is really to get yourself into a very calm, relaxed state, and then engage your imagination and ask yourself, if I could have anything I wanted, what do I really want? And get a notepad and a pen out and allow your imagination to take you down any rabbit hole it decides to take you down.
Good. Journaling, people are often telling me, Rose, you need to journal. I mean, I'm not a journaler. I don't know. I just send my thoughts out to the universe and hope the universe listens. I don't like to write them down. I think maybe it's from something that's happened in my past, because I had kept a journal, someone read it, and it caused a big fight. And so it's probably why I don't journal anymore. I keep, my thoughts to myself, or I just put them out to the universe. I whisper them. I don't say them to myself. I actually whisper them out loud so that, that I'm sure that they'll hear me then. So, but yeah, journaling's not my thing. And so I don't know, but you're right. You need, sometimes if you write things down, it makes more sense because a pattern will emerge eventually about whether it's a really good goal or it's not a good goal. I had an epiphany a couple of nights ago that I'm going to start a online radio station. So now I've got the plans in place to do that, and because I love podcasting and I love the people that I meet, and people are just coming out since I've put the idea out there. People are coming at me left, right, and centre. Can they get involved in it? And I was like amazed, and so this is going to come together. I know, because every time I talk about it, I get goosebumps. So
amazing when you put something out with such strong emotion or intention, how the people, the resources, and the circumstances come to you, and how it feels like the universe is conspiring upon your behalf, right?
Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling. I love it, and it's going to come together. I just know it. I'm very excited but I'd love to hear your story, Lee.
Sure, Rose. So on the 13th of January 2019, I was carjacked. I was hijacked here in South Africa. Yeah. This might not be prevalent in Tasmania or in Australia, wherever your audience is from. But here in South Africa, I don't know if you know, have you heard about the crime levels?
I've heard that it's really dangerous to drive.
Yeah. So, hijacking or carjackings are daily occurrence. So on the 13th of January 2019, I was carjacked. I was hijacked close to where I stay, in front of a shopping center. And it was a Sunday afternoon at about 2:15 in the afternoon. I pulled into this shopping center. There's a furniture store there, and all the stores were closed because it was a Sunday afternoon. But I hopped out of the car to look at these dining tables. I was window shopping. We just moved into a new place. So I was looking for a dining table. And the next minute, Rose, this gray Volkswagen Golf pulls into the parking lot with blue lights on the dashboard. So I obviously thought it was an unmarked police vehicle. But instantly, my gut, my intuition told me that something's not right here. So anyway, these guys pulled into the parking lot and they rolled down the passenger side window, and the driver said out of the window to me, he said, we just got a call that someone's trying to break into one of the stores here. And the next minute, the passenger in front and the passenger behind the driver both jumped out with firearms in their hands, one coming to me from the left front, one from the right-hand side. So anyway, the guy from the left front comes up to me and he says, "Where is your car keys?" And he starts tapping my pockets. So I say to him, it's here in my right pocket. So he takes the key out, and these two guys then proceed to bundle me into the trunk, into the boot of my car. Now, that Sunday afternoon, I was driving a little Volkswagen Polo, and Rose, I'm 6.5 foot tall, so I'm a big guy. And they literally boxed me into that little trunk. And to be honest with you, the first 10 minutes was tough. Like, it was really tough. Just to calm myself, just to gain control over my thinking. But eventually, 10 minutes later, they transferred me from my car into their car, into the Golf. So at least there was a bit more leg room in there. But what started happening, which is what I want to share with your audience, as you stated, I'm an abundance coach. I specialize in mindset. I've been working with Bob Proctor since December 2016. And obviously, I've got to be a product of the product, because we cannot give what we don't have, right? And I've been internalizing ideas around mindset for many years now. And this really came to the fore in that line in the trunk of their car. The first thing that came to mind was, I run a 6-month coaching program called Thinking into Results. And lesson 9 in the Thinking into Results program is a lesson on attitude. And in the video of that particular lesson, Bob says, he speaks about a man, a Viennese psychiatrist by the name of Viktor Frankl. Are you familiar with that name?
I've heard it, yes.
Viktor Frankl authored a little book called Man's Search for Meaning. And he was a Viennese psychiatrist, like I've already stated, who spent the war years in a Nazi concentration camp. He spent years in Auschwitz. And Viktor Frankl, in that little book, he says, you know, in the worst circumstances, we can search for meaning, or we can try and find meaning to life. Now, I want you to think about that, Rose. We know what happened in those concentration camps. You know, this man seen his wife murdered there. He had a wedding band, which he referred to as the last vestige of his known identity. And he says, you know, when they removed his wedding band, he said in that moment he realized that they could take everything from him, but the last of human freedoms, which he says was your and my ability to think. And he said,
yes, now it comes to mind now where I know him from, yes.
And he said, you know, regardless of the intellectual or the physical abuse that they subjected him to, he could still choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of his mind. Now, picture this, I'm lying in this trunk and this plays in my mind. And I'm thinking, gosh, Lee, this is a tough spot you find yourself in right now. But relative to what that man went through, this is probably a walk in the park. If he could choose to hold a positive picture on the screen of his mind, surely you can at least try. So that was the first very handy thing that came up. The second thing is there's a speaker from the West Coast of America, from California, a speaker by the name of Michael Bernard Beckwith. And Beckwith has a 3-step approach to anything negative that, you know, you might be going through. If you going through something negative, and if you've got a pen and a notepad in front of you, I want you to write these 3 things down because it's really powerful. So I'm lying in the trunk of that car, and these 3 steps play in my mind. The first step is, it is what it is. Accept it. It's either going to control you or you going to control it, at least from a mental perspective. Now, to be honest with you, Rose, you know, very early on in that, I gave it over to the universe. And I said, Dad, you know, whether I make it out of this alive or dead, I accept the outcome because you in control. I mean, there were 4 armed guys, right, Rose? What was I really going to do?
But I'd be shitting myself.
The second step in Beckwith's approach is harvest the good. There's good in everything. If you're looking for it, you're going to find it. Now, you probably sitting there thinking, gosh, you know, Lee, what was the good in that? Because I was looking for it, I found it. My 4-year-old son, Zach, was with me that weekend, and he could so easily have been with me at 2:15 on that Sunday afternoon. Thank goodness he was at home. He was safe. My sister was supposed to come out with me to look at these dining tables. Thank goodness she also didn't make it, and she was at home and she was safe. So that was something immediately I could start celebrating. And the third step in Beckwith's approach is forgive all the rest. Forgive means to let go of completely, abandon, you know, just let it go. You know, somebody's done something bad to you, you know, don't harbor any ill feelings. I mean, all the great religions speak about it, right? Forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is for us. It's for you, right? It's just to free yourself. And because these 3 steps played in my mind, lying in the trunk of that car, Rose, I could start praying for these guys. I prayed that they, you know, I prayed for their parents. I prayed for their kids, even though there was a possibility they were going to take me away from my boy. I prayed that they'd find a way to make it out of that sort of lifestyle, to make a meaningful difference in the world. And I'm not sharing that with you to impress you, but rather to impress upon you that regardless of what's happening in our external environment, we can still control what's happening inside. And why do we want to do that? Because all of the great leaders of the past, they've disagreed on virtually everything, but they've all agreed that we become what we think about. They've all agreed that, and go and analyze their record. So if we become what we think about, we want to be in control of that. Well, anyway, they let me go about 3 hours later behind one of the big hospitals here in Johannesburg, in a township called Soweto. Are you familiar with Soweto,
Yeah,
Rose?
I've heard Soweto, yeah.
That's where Nelson Mandela lived. And the hospital they let me go behind was a hospital called Baragwanath. And when I got out there, I phoned a family member, Keenan, to fetch me. And when he got there, he said, "Gee whiz, I cannot believe how calm you are." And there's just one other thing I want to share with your listeners. And this is probably the reason I was as calm as I was. I was part of a group of about 25 mindset coaches and speakers from all around the world. And we had a 90-day challenge where we'd meet every day on a Zoom call like this. And we were rewriting a chapter called Serenity from a little book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Are you familiar with that book?
No.
Powerful, powerful little book that I think everybody should have in their personal library, if you a personal development student, that is. And this Serenity chapter, just a short chapter, we'd meet every day at the same time, and we'd rewrite this 1.5 page chapter together. And, I joined this group on the 24th of October, 2018. So by the 13th of January, 2019, when this incident that I'm telling you about happened, I had been internalizing, impressing ideas on, serenity, equanimity, this inner control or this inner peace on my subconscious mind for 79 days. And that was probably the reason I was as calm or composed as Keenan seen. Now, these 3 mental tools that I've just, because that's what they are, right? 3 mental tools that I've just shared with you had me mentally spiraling up in the trunk of that car. Now imagine, Rose, if I had not had those 3 tools, I'd have been mentally spiraling down, and I'd have jumped out at the back of that hospital in absolute emotional wreck. Does mindset coaching work? There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that proper elite level mindset coaching definitely does work. And as entrepreneurs, right, we get tested all the time, and we need to have this mental toughness, this now, why am I sharing this story with you and your listeners, Roses? Because now, all around the world, there's a lot of negativity. With the pandemic, people losing their businesses, going out of businesses, having to pivot, fear of losing loved ones, fear of ill health, the war in Ukraine. It's just, we live in very different times, I'm sure. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's terrible what's happening in the world at the moment.
And regardless of what's happening in our outside world, just like Viktor Frankl, we can choose to control what's happening in the inside world. We can choose to hold a positive picture. Now, just to close this or bring the story full circle, this very worst thing that could have happened to me turned out to be the very best thing, because it allowed me the opportunity to realize that big C-type, that big fantasy goal I had set a couple of years earlier. So as I stated, when we opened up, that I worked in an IT corporate career for many years, for 18 years. And when I started my journey of personal development, I set a goal. I got it on a goal card. This is a goal card. This is what I'm going to achieve. And the goal I set, I think it was 2014, was I wanted to speak on an international stage. I wanted to be, nothing qualified me for it, Rose. At that particular moment, I was in an IT corporate career. And you know, when you set the goal, then the voices come, right? So if you set the big business goal, the voices come, right? Who are you to accomplish this? You know, who do you think you are to start this worldwide radio station? Who's going to listen to you, Rose? You know, all these voices in our head start popping up. And, you know, what came to mind for me was like, who's going to listen to you? You know, you're just a nobody from the wrong side of the main road, you know, type of thinking. What are you going to talk to people about? And like I said, this very worst thing turned out to be the best thing, because it allowed me the opportunity to tell the story at Bob Proctor's Matrix seminar at the Hilton in Toronto to 110 business owners from all around the world. And literally the realization of a dream or picture I'd had in my mind for many years. One of the greatest success teachers of all time, Napoleon Hill, who authored a book. You familiar with Hill?
Yeah, I've got a few of his books from when I did human resource management.
In his book, Think and Grow Rich, he says that any adversity or every challenge or every setback brings with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. The thing is, a lot of people are focused in on the negative instead of working their way to the other side. And, you know, if you're going through something particularly challenging, there's a great gift in there when we can work our way to the other side. And that's based on the law of polarity. You know, if it's 6 meters from that side of your wall to the other side, it's 6 meters back. You know, for every inside, you've got to have an outside. For every up or down, a left or right, you know. And if something's really bad, if you can shift your focus or start moving towards the other side, the win is just so much greater, you know. Maybe in ending, Rose, the Chinese, when they write the word crisis, they use 2 brush strokes. One of the brush strokes represents danger, and the other one opportunity. So, you know, in every crisis, we got to be aware of the danger, but we've also got to understand that there is an inherent opportunity in it if we're looking for it.
Quite good thinking. You're right. There is opportunity. I mean, I'm an optimist. I'm the eternal optimist. I always see, you know, the good in people, where others always see the bad. But there's always some little spark of good in bad people. Just it's hidden most often. You know, I see quite often the good in their situation. Not always, but, you know, when I reflect on something bad that's happened, there's always something to be grateful for. So, you know, being an optimist, I guess it comes naturally that I always look at the good in things. So that's really good advice.
Look, often, you know, if you've been around for a while, when we look back at our biggest challenges, those were actually the biggest gifts, Rose. Do you agree? Has that been
it's taught me a lot. It's made me the person I am. It's made me so resilient. I'm like a rubber ball, and you can't keep me down for long. Yeah, so I do appreciate the bad things that have happened, because it's made me a strong person.
Yeah, I'm also looking back at all the challenges, all the negative experiences, you know, failed relationships, or, you know, the story I've told you. A lot of them have, or most of them have helped me propel myself to the next level. So, you know, I'm, like you say, you develop this resilience, or, you know, this, I'm 10 foot tall or bulletproof. I can handle anything that life throws me, simply because I've been there before. I've been tested, you know, I've been down. I know how to get back up, you know. And, you know, most people, and this is what I think scares people in terms of selling, sales, entrepreneurship, is most people are scared of failure, whereas failure is part of the process, right? And, you know, something else
that should be taken out of our vocabulary. There is no such thing as failure. Failure is only a lesson.
Absolutely. There's no such thing. We can only learn and grow. Failure is just simply feedback. And think of it. The greatest sports people in the world, the greatest entrepreneurs are probably those individuals that have racked up more failures than anybody else. I'm not sure, 100% sure on the statistics, but Babe Ruth was one of the greatest baseball hitters of all time. I think he's known for, and I stand to be corrected, like I say, I'm not exactly sure on the exact number, but he hit like 770 home runs or something. And that's what he's remembered for. But people don't realize he striked out like 1,500 times. He striked out. So there was a lot more failure, but he's remembered for the big hits.
It was like Edison when he invented the light bulb. It took like 200 goes or something before he finally got it right.
A ton of failure in there in terms of, but the thing is, you just readjust and you use that, as information or feedback to correct or to change the approach or to do something new.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that word with the F should be out of our vocabulary.
Bob Proctor, my mentor, he often used to say, when you get a new dictionary, go to the page where impossible is and cut the word impossible out of the dictionary. And, I think I like your idea. I think we should cut failure out as well.
Yeah, well, impossible is I am possible. So there you go. Lee, it's been so much fun talking to you, and I loved your story. I would have been sort of panicking, but you're right. If you think about the outcome logically and, and keep good thoughts in your brain and how you're going to get out of it, usually happens to be a happy ending. How can people find you, Lee, if they want to know more about you or work with you?
So, Rose, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. That's my primary, a place to put in content out, LinkedIn or Facebook. And the name is Lee, L-E-E, and my surname, Roebeck, is spelled R-O-E-B-E-C-K. So you're welcome to connect with me, and we can have a chat.
Perfect. Last words of wisdom before we go?
I think I just say, regardless of the challenges, what we're going through, the setbacks, you can turn it into something positive, into something constructive for yourself.
Absolutely. Anyone can do it. If I can, anyone can. Lee, I've so enjoyed our talk today. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with us and your words of wisdom, because they are great words indeed.
Rose, thank you for having me. It's been fun. Thank you.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.